Here we go. Hi, everyone. This is Reinette Senum for part 2, possibly part 3 of David Avocado Wolfe. And thank you, Avo, so much for being with me again today. Our last interview about 2 weeks ago was highly, highly popular.
It was really interesting. And I was so glad that we were able to get together for the second part because I missed last week. I was in the midst of some really awesome stuff, but it was just full schedule, full tilt, burn both ends of the candle with a blowtorch.
And I want to say thank you to Robin. She's the one that was helping with the scheduling and stuff like that. So thank you so much. It really does take 2 people. People have no idea how much work it takes to get these interviews organized and then online. And it's a bit of an effort. So the conversation is just a small part of it.
Yes. And I can't wait to put this out on my channel. So when this is done, we'll make sure we get this one out too. Part 2. Here we go.
Part 2. So, okay. So boy, so if you've not seen part 1, we span the globe and time. We were talking about Khazarian mafia, who they are. They're under the cloak of the Jews, right? And how it relates to Israel. We were talking about the Jesuit order, how the Jesuit order has had control of California since its inception. We were talking about the Pope, the Black Pope, the Masons. I mean, the CCP. What did we not cover?
I think we got all the basics in there. The banksters, what the banksters are up to, the usurious system and where they're going, which they want a digital slave coin or digital slave currencies where they want to get us to. So we, fortunately, just because the way this world is set up, when the evil starts to produce whatever they're trying to do or create whatever they're trying to do, actually, they don't create much. They just try to parasite off of everything.
That's right.
And the other side is the solution that's created. So when you look at the Bitcoins of the world and look at the cryptocurrencies of the world, and especially Monero and Pirate, those 2 privacy coins, those are the solutions to our currency problem. So right there's the solution. It's already in action. It's already been moving. It's been out for years. There's already momentum behind it. So there's never a problem without a solution is what I'm trying to say.
That's right. Right. And I think the time has come for the big global solution. Now, before we start and by the way, folks, we're going to be talking heavy stuff, but we are going to get into solutions and action items and things you can do towards the end of this interview. I did want to go back to the Khazarian mafia, which is essentially where Ukraine is. And we were talking about their history. And I had a lot of people saying, well, wait, they're claiming themselves to be Jews, though they are not Jews by blood. What caused them to do that? So when I was doing a little bit more of a deep dive, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think this is a really fascinating point to bring up because we're seeing a pattern here. What I read was that the Khazarians were devil worshiping, satanic. And what they were doing is through Khazaria and surrounding areas, when there was travelers, they would rob them, rape them, murder them, and then take on their identity.
Interesting. I mean, I always go back to Arthur Koestler's work, which is the kind of the seminal work on the subject. It's called The 13th Tribe. That was the book that I showed in our first interview part 1. And I do need to reread that book. It's been about 25 years since I read that book. But what I recall is that the Khazarians, they were basically a mafia that was kind of handling the spice trade. So this is the trade between China and India heading over to Europe. And, this is a crossroads. Rudolf Steiner called the Ukraine the crossroads between the German embryonic seed of culture and the Russian embryonic seed of culture, that this is the crossroads where it all goes down in the Ukraine. So it's interesting. He said that well over 100 years ago, and we're seeing this go down right now. Rudolf Steiner, by the way, said that this is an Anglo-Germanic age that we're in right now, and that the next age would be the Russian. So that gives me a suspicion that the Russians are going to win this with the conflict in Ukraine, just because they seem to be going with their, like, for example, Putin's people. Putin, people are like, well, he's the most corrupt and this and that. It's like, yeah, compared to Beijing Biden, like compared to Nancy Pelosi, compared to Mitch McConnell, compared to Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Compared to who?
I know.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, Russia, they say, is the second most corrupt nation in the world, Ukraine being the most corrupt. But in reality, the United States is the most corrupt.
I would agree. Well, what's interesting is that I want to get to this point because it relates to what's happening today. So what happened was the Khazarians were murdering, raping, and then usurping travelers' identity. And then you had the regions around the Khazarian region, the Russians and others, basically saying, look, you got to stop your Satan worshiping, you got to stop murdering and so on. And so we're going to give you this opportunity. You can take on one or three religions and stop your Satan worshiping. It could be Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, and they took Judaism. But they didn't stop their satanic worshiping. They continued it, but now they call themselves Jews. What was fascinating, though, which makes sense, is then what they did was they expanded themselves and they took out the British royal. And they took on their identity and began to marry in. They did the same thing then to the Germans, to the Austrians, even the leaders of China. They did the same thing. So we're now talking for well over 1,000 years. They have infiltrated the royal families, wiped them out, replaced them, and have been interbreeding. And they did the same thing when they started basically the Bank of London. And the Bank of London is what started the British expansion, the global expansion. And then they pissed off China when they found out, because what they're doing is they have all these family members, right, who are all these royals, and they're all spies, and they're feeding all the information into the Rothschilds and so on. And what happened, from what I was reading, was that England was buying silk and spices from China, and then they found out Turkey had these great things called the opiates. And so what they did is they started buying opiates. And they all their gold and silver went to China for the silk and for the spices, and they wanted their gold and silver back. So what they did is they started to send opiates to China, got the Chinese addicted to it, and got their silver and gold back, which pissed off China. But my point is this, is they are masters of disguise. And what we're seeing today are elected officials and leaders who aren't who they say they are, right? They're all just playing a role, which also plays into when you talked about the Jesuit order has been here since the inception of California. They started essentially California. And in fact, it looks like the Rothschilds funded the original American colonies. They funded the expansion and funded slavery because they wanted to take the assets. They got in on it early on. So it's not like we got infiltrated later on as a colony or as a country. It happened from the inception, California and the United States.
There's always been this role of evil and mafia, and there's certain characteristics of evil, by the way. One is masters of disguise. One is constant deception. So it's that Sun Tzu strategy of war is about deception.
Yeah.
So there's a constant bait and switch going on, and it's always been there with us all along throughout human history, and it's been encoded and it's become especially entracted into governments and religions at the very top now, and also Freemasonry. So I don't know all the history of the infiltration of the Khazarian mafia into the British royal family and the royal families of Europe, but I do know that the royal families of Europe have always sought after, like they went after, what was that guy's name? Lotho, the Viking, the famous Viking who invaded, came all the way down to Sicily, and he was a berserker. And that they definitely wanted some of his bloodline in their bloodline. So they would seek out people in the world who were extremely vicious and extremely courageous to interbreed into their bloodlines. I do know that.
Oh, wow. That's
and that case is an interesting one because they made a Viking, I think, TV show or something about, I think his name's Lotho something Bridge, or can't quite remember his name, but he was a famous Viking. And then his descendants went on to found Iceland and Greenland, et cetera, and all that. But there's definitely been in the royal families of Europe this idea of bringing in really vicious types of beings into their bloodline. And so what they're really driving for, and these royal families are really driving for, is a ruthless predator type of mentality. And you could say that with the Jesuits, you could say that with the Khazarian mafia, you could say that with the British royal family and the royal families of Europe. You could say, not all of them are like that. Not all of them are like that, but every now and then there's another one gets kicked in who's and there's some relationship between the reincarnation of souls and bloodlines and inbreeding.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And now that leads us to where we are today. And in fact, when you're talking about you think Russia's going to win this war, I think so too. And I think the other thing is too, is what I was reading up is that the Khazarian mafia hates Russia because they also helped us win the American Revolutionary War, which is not what they expected. So they have like a blood oath against taking down Russia big time. And Russia right now, as it currently stands, they know it's all or nothing. It's now or never. And so where we currently stand is that Russia is going to go full throttle, and they have got to essentially cut off the supplies from Poland to Ukraine into Kiev, because they can cut off those supplies. Basically, they've won. And it looks to me like what we're seeing is that we've had all these nations who are part of NATO who are now backpedaling, going, I don't want anything to do with this. And
We don't want anything to do. This has nothing. This is not a fight we're part of. We talked about that in the last show, that the traditional Tsar line was on the Dnieper River, which is where Kiev is. That it's on that river. That was the line. That's still the line. If you look at the cultural and ethnic background of who's east of that line, it's Russian. If you look who's west on that line, it's Ukrainian. And so this is just not a war that we want to get into. We're not supposed to be in this war. The reason why we're in this war is because the Khazarian mafia, the banksters, the Jesuit order, they're looking at this as an opportunity to topple Western, not only Western hegemony in the world, but to topple the systems of governance so they can get us into a neo-feudalism and under a total slavery. That's what they're looking at. I mean, slavery, by the way, is still and has always been the number one business in the world.
Yep.
People forget that. There's more slavery on the earth now than there's ever been.
I know.
It's always been. So this whole thing is about enslaving the West and using this war as a excuse to collapse the economic system, collapse the infrastructure, and essentially, grind us down into a neo-feudal state. Is what that's what their talk and their sayings are.
Well, and I'm sure you probably saw this because it was like this shot across the bow, or a shot, what is it, around the world. It was when Xi Jinping last week took out his predecessor in the full public 2,000 CCP members, once every 5-year gigantic meeting, and they just quietly picked him up and escorted him out. And Xi Jinping didn't even look at them in the eyes, and that was all by design. And it did send a chilling effect around the planet. So it looks to me as though the central bankers, those in power, are going to basically make Xi Jinping the de facto leader of the globe, is what it looks like to me.
Well, so let's talk about China a little bit. Okay. This is definitely a Stalinistic move. That was very Stalinistic what they did with that guy. They dragged him out, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And then Xi Jinping didn't even look at him. Emperor Xi's like, well, I'm not even looking at this guy. It's just a power move. And this is the kind of thing, by the way, that the Beijing, Biden, and Hunter love, because they love Xi. They love Emperor Xi. They're all about him. They think he's the greatest thing ever. So they're into that. If you've seen that clip, if you haven't seen it, go watch that clip. But if you have seen that clip, then you'll know that that's the mentality of the people like the Biden regime. That's the way they think. They're Stalinistic in their thinking. They're going to remove you by force if necessary, and public humiliation if possible. Now, I don't think, there's a big problem in China, and that is they've had 400-year floods, and now they're in a drought, and it just goes, they've been flipping back and forth. And maybe it's geoengineering, maybe it's weather warfare. Yeah. But China is not a threat. They're not. They're going to collapse.
Oh, good. Well, I know economically things aren't going well.
They're in trouble, major trouble. And the reason why that is because the U.S. is by far their biggest trading partner. And if the U.S. has stopped buying from China because of all the problems with the ports and, the 9-month delays and all this. So all these big box stores are sitting on product from last year. They're not buying this year. So that's putting a massive economic stress on China. And eventually, my prediction on what's going to happen is what's historically happened in China. Eventually, it becomes provincial fighting. So one province fights the other province, and it will descend into feudalism. So the hegemony of the CCP is very important for the banksters to maintain. So that's why they're trying to push Xi into that Stalinist position to try to hold the whole thing together.
Right.
And I just don't think, I think China's going to the brutality that's going on there, the total insanity of the Communist Party, and it just can never work, and it will eventually cause massive crisis in the whole country.
It will. And I know also they're having a lot of massive protests. Now, granted, they're ruthless. They'll shoot these people down without blinking an eye. But it's, and it's really interesting because I'm watching it, and it's like, it's got to implode at some time. Not that they can't do some encroachment and serious war games against us in the meantime, but I am seeing, like the Apple iPhone workers get off of work, and I'm not kidding you, 300,000 of them running to get their PCR test, because if they don't get their PCR test and get a green light, they can't get back into their apartments. I mean,
it's total tyranny, and it's coming to the West. If we allow the Biden regime and these maniacs to continue on, mostly operating through the Democrat Party, but some
yes.
obviously operating through the Republican Party, if we allow this to go on, we're going to end up in the most insane tyranny ever imagined. I mean, it will be dystopia on steroids, and that's why I'm so vocal about it. That's why you're so vocal about it, because we want to stop it, and we got to stop it now. This big tech collusion and all of this is really disturbing as well. That, you know, these people like the Zuckerbergs, the Google guys, the Twitter guy, that really in their hearts that they're actually communist maniacs, and that's really disturbing. Like, at least, you know, I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk, but at least he's a free speech guy. My God, I mean, what? You know, so anyway, what I think is going to happen with Putin is eventually the NATO alliance is going to fall apart. Eventually, the Western nations will fall apart. They're going to descend, and this is my prediction, and I think it's a very strong prediction. I've been saying this for years. They will descend into a balkanization, which is already happening. So, for example, in the United States, we're seeing a breakup between the South and the states of the North. The 19 states of the South: Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, the Dakotas, Idaho, Arizona. We're going a different direction. Missouri, we're going a different direction than the rest of the country. Like that, like New York is basically going full communist dictatorship, and Corruptifornia is going full Luciferian dictatorship. And that's kind of where we're headed. And so we're going to see a split along the Mason-Dixon line kind of thing. You see what I'm saying? And you're going to see that in every country. You'll see it in Europe, where Bavaria is going to say, we're not going to be part of that. You know, parts of Austria will be like, we're not going to be part of that. And parts of France will be like, we're seceding away from this. We're not going to be part of this. And the countries themselves will secede away from the centralized authorities. And this is all going to be under the pressure of the endless NATO war that will go on forever if they can get away with it. And then we can, if we want to, we can transition right into what I think is going to happen with the false flag. It's definitely going to be a false flag nuclear event. I think they're prepping us for that.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt. They've been prepping, especially because when they were starting to do PSAs in New York City, you know, like, oh, just, you know, hide in your house and for a while in your apartment and just listen to your radio. I mean, things like that. So let's talk about that, because people are definitely on edge around what is going on. So let's talk about that. That'd be great.
Make sure that you have significant antioxidants on hand. For example, iodine. Make sure you have iodine. Right. Very important. I'm a big fan of Dr. Group's Detoxidine. That's my favorite iodine product. That's the one that works for me. Now, another product that I'm really in favor of in this regard is chaga mushroom. Chaga is very powerful against any kind of radiation. So let me just show you. I've got some chaga mushroom here. And let me just show you what it looks like. Here's a little piece anyway. There's a little piece of wild chaga. And the wild chaga is significantly more powerful. This is going to go in my teapot, actually. The wild chaga is significantly more powerful. That's just a little chunk of chaga, but has very high melanin, very powerful antioxidant. Okay. And that's in my tea right now, too, this tea that I'm drinking right here. Another category that I would say is very important is things like chlorella, spirulina, that are hyper concentrates of color pigments to neutralize radiation. So charcoal, carbon-60, for sure the chaga mushroom and other high melanin content mushrooms, and then the high pigment foods like chlorella and spirulina, and then iodine. Have those ready to go, because this is what I think is going on. I think I mentioned this in our last show, but just so everybody knows, the destructive power of nuclear weapons appears to be a Cold War hoax. So
wait, I'm going to clarify that. Okay. We're talking the Hiroshima Nagasaki version. Thank you. Okay.
Yes. Right. So Hiroshima was napalmed like the other 100 cities in Japan, which, by the way, if you're like, go, you know, rah, let's bomb everybody, US, NATO kind of person, what the US did to Japan in the last 100 days of that war is the craziest thing in history, I think. And, you know, the U.S. leveled every city that was more than 50,000 people in Japan. Leveled. This is citizens. Like, this is not military targets. They leveled it. Everything. 100 cities, wiped it out. And Hiroshima and Nagasaki were part of that. They napalmed it. Now, they may have dropped a dirty nuclear bomb in on top of it, but the videos that we have of that event, of the Hiroshima bomb, are definitely composites. It's not a real video. It's a fake. And we've studied that endlessly on with me and some internet sleuths for a decade. It's a fake. It's a composite. It's been fitted together. So if they dropped a nuclear bomb on Hiroshima, it wasn't that destroyed it. It was just sprayed nuclear debris around. My suspicion has been all along is that that's the weapon that they have. They don't have like one bomb destroys, 7 million people in a nuclear holocaust. It, destroys everything within 100 kilometers. That doesn't exist. What exists is something like what happened in Beirut a couple of years ago, where that thing, whatever that was, downtown Beirut at the port, we don't know what that was, but we suspect it was probably some kind of a bomb.
Yeah.
And that, you saw the damage that did. Now imagine nuclear debris sitting on top of that, radioactive plutonium, uranium, polonium, etc. That's the weapon that they're going to use, in my opinion, because it's the weapon they have, right? It's like, if they had something like Hiroshima, they would have used it already by now. Yeah. If they had depleted nuclear weapons, they would have used it by now, and they have in that case. Yeah. And they're just going to ramp, and they may have used a dirty nuclear weapon in the destruction of the Twin Towers too.
Right.
You have evidence of that, and people have talked about that for years.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's paramount. In fact, I was mentioning to you before we went live, that, we have our circle of friends. I'm like, okay, guys, we've got to be ready for anything. I mean, you just have to be ready, not to put, the fear of God into people. But I love that saying, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So just be ready for any kind of interruption, whether it's food supplies, communications, electricity. So what we've been doing is we have our circle of friends, and we're making sure that we've got our roadmaps, US roadmaps, California roadmaps, right? Because we saw what happened in Texas with their GPS got scrambled just about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, which people believe was probably a CCP test run. I don't know what your opinion is on that, but they felt it was some kind of a test run for something, for a larger game.
It likely. Now, by the way, just so everybody knows, that the World Communist Party is all run by the banksters.
Yes, that's right.
Once they got the central bank into China, which is what Nixon and Kissinger did.
Right.
So Nixon and Kissinger are just actors for the bankers.
That's right.
Banksters, because they're really banksters, not bankers.
That's right.
And so what they did is they got that in, then they moved all your manufacturing away from the US and Canada, and they put it over there. And then now, they're basically trying to leave us defenseless. So ultimately, this communist movement is all working together. So whether that order came out of Beijing or whether it came out of...
Exactly. It's all one and the same.
All one and the same.
Right. Right. So, okay. So we have this big move happening right now. And I do want to actually ask you a question though. One of the things that I've been hearing too is I've been getting a lot of rumbles from different people about, because all of our men and women, our warheads, our military apparatus and so on are really focused on Ukraine right now. We're kind of left here hanging. We're pretty weak right now. It's pretty thin. I've been getting wind from certain individuals that, we have this backlog of cargo ships along the West Coast, but we have had instances where some of those cargo ships are full of CCP soldiers. And they have been unloading in the middle of the night because they actually had, this was in the end of May, I was campaigning, and I have somebody who's in the military had said that there was a crowd of teenagers on the beach in Long Beach having a little bonfire, and they saw just this school of scuba divers come out of the water, stripped down. They were Chinese soldiers getting to, plain clothes. And the teenagers like, what the hell's going on? They actually called the police because they're like, this doesn't look right. And the scuba divers ditched their stuff, had the street closed, started going into Long Beach, and they got caught. They got nabbed.
Wow. Now, my position is that the CCP is not going to invade North America. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Oh, I sure hope you're right. But I also feel like if they're going to attack, now would be the time, because we're so weak. They could take out the GPS. They could take out communications. And I have people saying, Reinette, there's, there's like 20 guns for each American. I'm like, look, I understand that. But if they take, and we don't know, we have a lot of vaccinated people. They have and I'm just, help me here. They have graphene oxide in their body. We now know 5G has been deployed at an exponential rate around the world when we had our stay-at-home orders. So that those things somehow are going to play into each other somehow.
The forced vaccination of our military is a strong indicator that they are going to attempt some military intervention in North America directly.
A year ago, they spoke to that. Once the U.S. military has been mostly vaccinated, that's when they can and they will make their move. So I'm just saying, that if there's ever going to be an amphibian attack from them, now would probably be the time. And supposedly many of the cargo ships that are sitting out there aren't cargo for our needs. It's just, it's the Humvees, the artillery, the personnel, the prisons, and they're just sitting there waiting for the moment. Now, I know that sounds absolutely scary, but I'm just saying, people like, look at, I'm really hoping I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, around Christmas time, we're going to have a Reinette was wrong party and we're going to celebrate like crazy. But I'm like, but from the different people I'm talking from, all these different, and again, none of these folks are connected, and I'm getting more and more. I'm like, okay, so if there is a time that they're going to attack us from the east, it would probably be now. So I just say to people, look it, just be ready for the unexpected. So we got our maps. We've got our solar cranking radios. We've got our portable solar powers and little batteries. We are talking to people. We're having a special meeting this coming week to get together to say, okay, we have our hub. We can communicate, do our VHF radios work because we have repeaters. How far? I think they go to 100 to 120 miles, which is awesome. So we can communicate, because I said, look, if communication goes down, you're just a sitting duck. I don't care how many guns you have. If you don't know there's something encroaching, then you're a sitting duck. So we have got to make sure that our communication works. Now, if there's some kind of weird EMP beyond belief, that's huge. If there's something that we can do like that, then we're kind of screwed. But at least have some backup plans at the very least. And then you can go to sleep at night.
So EMP, for everybody who doesn't know, is an electromagnetic pulse event. And so that would be caused by detonating a nuclear weapon high up in the atmosphere. Again, the destructive power of nuclear weapons has been exaggerated. I'm very sure of that from my research, and I spent a lot of years on it. But the debris from these events and the electromagnetic pulse appears to be real. Yeah. And so that could shut down all electronics, including the electronics in your car, across the whole United States, for example.
Yeah, that's serious. In fact, I was watching one interview of a guy who's an expert and said the problem is that, you can put your stuff in a Faraday cage. Let's say the EMP happens, but the problem is that we're talking for, there could be like this, like almost like a static electricity that can kind of keep coming through, and it just some weird stuff can happen. But yeah, and also what I found out was just that is that they can't do this massive mushroom explosion that just wipes out completely a city. It's not that bad. But what they were saying is supposedly what is a possibility, and as you know, the wartime tactic is that you create these these big events where everyone's looking. So they're talking about dirty bombs in California cities. So everyone's looking at the cities going, oh my God, look what happened. And then in the evening when no one's paying attention, all our eyes are on the cities that have had these dirty bombs, and power's down, communications down. And okay, from my experience, and I told you about the warehouse of Chinese drone operators that somebody stumbled on about 6 or so years ago.
Yep.
My feeling is, because we're watching this in China right now, they are keeping people in open air prisons by the use of drones. There are drones everywhere. You can't walk down an alleyway without a drone. So when people go, oh, it's impossible, there's billions, it's like, no, they're using drones are the eyes. And if you don't get in line, then they come out, behind with, personnel. So I know this sounds horrific, but I'm like, you guys, we're in World War III, and don't think that this stuff can't happen. And we're really compromised right now. By design, we are compromised.
Just the fact that they're compromising us in the ways that they're doing it, trying to get rid of the guns. They've vaxxed all the military. Who God knows how many injuries that's caused or deaths or will cause. The way that they've gone after the elderly just to wipe them out. Just, it's a full frontal attack on every front, on every side. So my position is that, let's say you're a person who's like, I could never shoot anybody. I could never shoot a gun. No problem. We need you shooting drones out of the sky. Get a gun, learn how to shoot drones out of the sky. You could definitely shoot drones out of the sky. That may be your main role. Who knows? I don't know.
Or you might be shooting the 5G cell antennas out of the sky or blowing them up. I'm seriously, because we know those are a big issue. And they're just going to be triangulating and targeting people left and right. So it might just be you're taking out the huge cell towers they put up while we were all in stay-at-home orders.
Yes. Did you hear Karen Kingston's whole spiel on that about the nanoparasite that's in these injections? Have you gotten that whole download?
Where they're actually assembling and stuff, have even little arms. Is that the stuff, or is it something different?
Yeah, no, she talks about that. That's part of it. But she's talking about that the actual weapon, obviously, is the jabs. That's obvious at this point. And it just, again, they've gone after everybody worldwide in the Western world including Jewish people, including Catholics, everybody. And that absolutely proves conclusively that these people don't care about the Jews. They don't care about the Catholics. They don't care about anything except their own power. And so that's also showing us that the people actually running the Catholic world, the people running the Jewish world, are maniacs. They're completely they're nuts. I mean, look at the jabs they've gone through in that particular, in Israel, just for example, where, I mentioned this on our last show, they cleaned them out. Everybody I've been talking to there, everyone over at age 60 is either dead, dying, sick. I mean, it's unbelievable what
they hit Israel first.
They hit it first and hardest.
Yeah.
So people who are against the Jews, I'll tell you who's against the Jews, those people, the Khazarian mafia. Yeah. They're the ones actually killing them. They're doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the one thing, is that this has obviously been a long-term plan, right? We're talking hundreds, if not thousands of years in the making. It's very, very clear. And these people are brilliant at what they do. I think the one little monkey wrench they weren't expecting is the internet.
Yes.
And granted, and now we're completely censored. I can't believe how censored we are. It's unbelievable. But I have to say, I'm kind of surprised it took so long. I'm like, what took you so long? I thought you would have done this 10 years ago, but they didn't. So here we are. So the beautiful thing is that we are the monkey wrench, and we're that one little piece they just didn't plan, so we can actually bring it to an end. Because once we reach that tipping point of awareness, and that's why we're having this conversation, is to show people the patterns so they can identify them and say, oh, I know what's going on here, or oh, I'm not falling for that. That's all we need to do, and then let everyone take it from there.
Yes, exactly. Right. So we just got to prepare people and get everyone ready for what's coming. Now, I did bring this, I mentioned this book on our last call right here, which is, that was the guy's name. Johnny Cerrucci is his name. And the book's called The Eaters of Children. This is about the presence of the Jesuits and their role in the New World Order and whatever's going on right now, and their history. It goes through, look at this thing. It goes through the whole history. This book is berserk. I mean, it's so insanely deep. You can't believe it. I mean, it's just like, what, this, that, and the other thing that's been going on all along. So these people, right? Remember, if we think about Catholicism, it's one of the biggest religions in the world, obviously, run out of the Vatican, and it's run by the Jesuits, essentially. We even have it out in the open that the current Pope is a Jesuit, right? That's out in the open now. They never let that stuff come out in the open. They're just openly admitting it now. This book takes you all the way through the whole Jesuit order and what they've been up to, the whole history of it, every crime they've been involved in. It's just full on.
I mean, they're basically behind, they're behind the false flags, the assassination of presidents, right? The sinking of the Titanic. And again, it's all one big happy club. But pretty much every false flag that's been out there and every war has been all by their design. You realize how we're really on a chessboard here. So
yeah, and by the way, let's while we're on that false flag idea, let's just be, this is something I've been meditating on. It's kind of Captain Obvious kind of stuff. They're going to try a false flag. It has to be like Pearl Harbor was a false flag. It's always a false flag. The Spanish-American War, false flag. It just goes on and on. The Vietnam War, false flag. It just goes on and on. So they're going to try a false flag, and I just can't help but think it's going to be some kind of a nuclear thing. I really feel like that's what they're coming with.
Well, and that's what they're going to scare the bejesus out of people, right? Like that's the biggest boogeyman of all. Yeah, it's the biggest boogeyman of all.
And then they're going to blame, Putin, or they're going to blame somebody else, of course.
Well, and luckily, God bless. I mean, again, I'm not saying Putin's a good guy, but Putin's not a stupid man. And he's calling them out saying, hey, they're going to do a false flag and they're going to blame it on us. And I'm just calling out right now. So when it happens, you all know. I mean, that was a brilliant strategic move to go public like that. And, and we're in this really interesting dichotomy because the central banksters, they have to go down. We are absolutely enslaved, and the enslavement is only going to get worse. So we're in this really weird dichotomy of our whole system has to crash and burn in order for us to be freed. But then we have to crawl out of the ashes. And that's where right now, we have some time. The current system is still in place. You still go do an order on Amazon and get whatever you need. So, I mean, the clock is ticking, and I'm going to be very clear. We are running out of time because no matter what, there's going to be monumental changes ahead of us. Now, how that rolls out, who knows? Anyone's guess. But it's interesting that we have to allow the system that we're dependent upon to crash and burn. And then it's up to us to rebuild it. But in the meantime, while we're rebuilding it, we also have to defend ourselves.
That you summarize the entire situation we're facing the next 10 years very well. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You nailed it. And so we've got to be prepared, and we got to be prepared in many ways. I mean, I just downloaded a website where it's like, here's what you need. Here's here's the checklist for survival and survival. We want to thrive too. We want to have a great time with our life, and we may. It's possible.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know how this is all going to roll out. My suspicion has always been that the more that the evil ramps up, the more the good has to ramp up to balance it out. So we're going to be propelled upward. Yeah. And I see that happening too, is that we're actually going to be ennobled. We're going to be brought into position where we're going to be able to deal with the evil and fight it and defeat it. We can't see how that's going to work out right now, but that's coming too.
Yeah. Well, and I also, I go, and I've been saying this for quite a few years, is when you're watching Hong Kong, the whole, be like water. I tell people, this is really key. Is the system is set up for war. The system is set up for violence and fighting. You can't give it that, because it will, engage and they'll trap you for this, right? They'll completely entrap you. You don't want to engage in their wars. And what you want to do is look to Hong Kong. If you haven't, the protesters a couple of years ago, they were like water. So they come out en masse because they had the numbers. That's what they had. They come out. And when they started to get pushed, they would just move on and be like water and didn't come over this way. And they get pushed back. They wouldn't engage as much as they would just push away like water and go over here. And that's what we need to do. Not that we don't need to shoot a drone out of the sky every now and then or defend ourselves. But if you go into a protest and it gets really, really violent, beyond just kind of protecting yourselves enough to get the hell out and be like water and come somewhere else. So they were doing that, which, by the way, when COVID hit, I was really trying to tap into Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts in January 2020. And a lot of the Chinese were thinking one of the reasons they released the bioweapon COVID at that time was because of the protesters in Hong Kong. Yeah. They were actually inspiring other protests throughout China and was creating this huge surge, this huge wave of protests. And the CCP is like, we got to clamp down on this now. And they clamped down hard, and Hong Kong has never recovered.
We're going to have to, the Hong Kongers were really adept at showing us how to dismantle the surveillance state. And they didn't, and the CCP didn't want that seen in the world. But I got to see it. You got to see it. We all got to see it. And so that's going to be coming up for us too, is that the surveillance state is going to have to be disassembled. Not only that, there's going to have to be very, very strict penalties for anybody who's involved in the surveillance state, right? So that there's a deterrent. And I do see, this has been coming up a lot. It's coming up a lot in social media. I see it all the time, that more and more and more people are calling for the guillotine for treason.
Well, you know what? There is a terminology here that I think we need to start using and getting it into our library of words. And that is, it's called reckless indifference. Have you heard of that?
No, it's an interesting term.
Reckless indifference is basically, and that's what all of our leaders are responsible, is when you know a crime is being committed, right? And you just let it happen. And at this point in time, because our county supervisors 2.5 years ago, every single 2 weeks, every Tuesday, whether it was snowing, raining, cold, freezing, hot, didn't matter. We were forced outside, having to do a camera, not allowed inside, dehumanize, wear your mask, do this, do that, inside, outside. It was just horrific. We received eye rolls and nasty remarks from our supervisors, and we gave them all the information. Everything, Avo, that has transpired today is everything we told them, we showed them, we proved to them was going to happen.
Wow. And what did they do?
Nothing. They laughed, they mocked us, they continue it still. They're still pushing our local newspapers, our local radio shows, our local organizations who got all the ARP funds and CARE Act funds. They're still pushing that narrative. And I'm like, you guys, please allow me to just roll out the rope so you can hang yourself even more. I mean, how easy are you going to make this? This is called reckless indifference. You know what's going on. You're ignoring the crime. You're allowing it to happen. And guess what? You know what? People hang for that. That is considered a treasonous, violation, and people die for reckless indifference. It's not like, oh, I'm just on the sides. I had no idea. It's like, no, you actually participated in the crime by doing nothing and ignoring it.
That's, this is that whole Nazi thing, right? It's like they participated in the crime and they thought they were going to get away with it, and they didn't get away with it, and they got caught, and then they hung for treason, or they basically for crimes against humanity. And basically this is what we can. This is the thing, though. There's so much evil now. We're at a world peak in evil. I think everyone's aware of that. This is the world peak in evil ever in history. I think we're all aware of that. There's more human trafficking now than ever, more slavery now than ever. There's more treason now than ever. That the question is what you brought up earlier is like, when is this system going to collapse? And like, when are we going to rise up against it? And like, how's this thing going to play out? And I think it's going to play out in a really most epic way ever somehow. I don't know what it's going to look like, but this is the story of our lives. This is the story of the earth. This is going to be something profound. And we're going to get to live and see it.
Yeah. Well,
I think it happen on the good side. I will say that. Also on the bad side, but on the good side, it's going to be something startling and profound.
Well, in spiritual warfare, I mean, I do believe that we've been so removed from the truth and who we really are, as spiritual beings. And remember those books, the Ringing Cedars, Anastasia books that came out of Russia, as a matter of fact, how it talks about when you plant a seed, you actually put it in your mouth and then you put it in the ground, and that seed, the soil reads your DNA so it can, give you what you need. I mean, the old world. How Anastasia actually was speaking, she would sleep with the bears, she would speak with the wolves. I mean, you're just like, what? That sounds too good to be real. And it's true. And by the way, I had a really weird dream last night. I woke up exhausted. I had to care for this wild mama bear, and Is this my whole dream last night? All I did was took care of this wild bear, and she'd sleep over here, get up, kind of get pissed off. And I'd be like, everyone clear the way, make a bed over here, get her some food. Okay. She wants some river walks and some river water. And she wants to play, and I was like, and trying to negotiate the public and the wild mama bear. And I woke up this morning and I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh my God, that was a lot of work. And the metaphor. So my point is that we have been so deceived and so lied to that I've always said that we have to have this existential crisis, because if we were to raise ourselves as a humanity and a spiritual being, we would have done it by now. But we're really lazy and we're passive and we just like to rest on our laurels. And so because we haven't done it on our own, we're going to be forced to be extraordinary. It's going to come at great costs. It already has come at great costs. I can't believe the world I'm living in my own town. I'm in my hometown, my home community as a child. And it's nothing like it was 3 years ago. It's a totally different world.
Wow.
And the same buildings, but it's gone. It just evaporated. Crazy.
Fascinating. You're right, though. It's because of the laziness, and because we didn't really deal with these crooks getting into governments, and because we didn't stop the banksters, and because we allowed the usury, and because we have allowed all this, it's going to come to a crisis, and it's going to be a super heroic crisis. There will be super heroic beings born out of all this. There will be stories that will be told throughout all history born out of what's about to happen. And something's coming up. Something profound and something and big, and we'll be called into it in the most interesting ways. And it will, there will be a point where essentially, like Texas is going to go, no, we're not doing that. And Florida's going to go, nope, we're not doing that either. And Missouri's going to go, nope, we're not doing that. And Bavaria's going to go, nope, we're not doing that. Certain districts in Canada, like Alberta's going to go, no, you saw Alberta that got this new premier in, Danielle Smith. And she's like, I'm not doing any World Economic Forum. Like, what does that guy have to do with what goes on here in Alberta?
I mean, so fantastic. I was hearing that and I'm like, is this for real? It was music to my ears. And then you see what's going on with the prime minister in England. What a clusterfuck. What a disaster that is.
I mean,
a second WEF puppet. I'm like, how blatant are you going to make this? I'm like, don't make our job so easy.
I mean, the UK there's so many problems. First of all, Liz Truss she's just a complete joke. I mean, totally out of it. And then this guy, the digital ID guy, I mean, he's another complete World Economic Forum clown. It's a circus over there. I mean, there's just no chance. And then you got King Charles, who's a buffoon, as the king. I mean, it's not looking good over there.
No, he can't even handle his little pen. He's like, he's so creepy. Well, so let's talk about this. So let's talk about the end goal for all of this right now is to get us into that social credit digital ID system. which basically means your life is done. And that's a real threat. It's as real can be. And if anybody who sits here to this day and questions that, I'm like, I mean, I don't know if you're questioning it, then you're just absolutely, you're toast, in my opinion. But so that's the end game. So this is the most important of all, is that when they push that on us, and you participate by going to Starbucks and only doing their digital wallet, right, currency, you're essentially enslaving yourself. Just skip the latte. It's not worth the enslavement. So I think people are more aware of the change that's going to be providing us. So what's your thoughts on that? How do you think, when they try to lock us down on that, how do you think Americans are going to respond to that?
Well, we went through the trial run of this whole lockdown. We had this trial run of communism in America and in Canada. We've had a trial run of communism in Western Europe, and we now see what it's all about. And so I think we're going to see more and more people rising up against it. Now, eventually it's going to go kinetic on the streets. It really is, because this paid group of agitators, Antifa, is really just working for the World Communist Party, is really what it is. Right. They're just paid group of agitators. Eventually people will have enough of them too. And when that starts, it's going to be, then we're going to see, because as soon as enough people start shooting, for example, you're not putting them in jail. It's like a revolution, because once they stole, and this is going to happen. I think the triggering point for this is when they steal everyone's pensions. That's my personal take on it. That it's all fun and games, all you la la la, oh yeah, guillotine, oh yeah, sure, right, whatever. But as soon as they steal your pension, then you're going to be like, they stole all my money. They stole everything. And they're in the process. Beijing, Biden, and his cronies are in the process of stealing your pensions right now. A big part of the COVID-19 nonsense is to get rid of the elderly so that they can steal everyone's money. They wouldn't have to pay them out on Social Security. Right. And this is going to happen in Europe first, and then it's coming over here. So right now, we have, I think, a couple of years, because the money in Europe is now moving over to North America, because people are looking at Europe going, what? They're completely freaking out with what's going on over there. But then eventually the dollar and the Canadian dollar will be boosted for a year or two. Then they'll bottom out. And then all those pensions will be evaporated off the stock market. The 401ks are gone. They're going to be all gone. And everyone's going to be like, they stole our money. They stole everything. We have nothing left. And then that's called revolution at that point. That's where we're going to get to the revolution.
Someone said you don't have to steal your money, they just have to make it worthless. They're working on that too. It's interesting, because I do have some friends they work in the city and the county, and it's really interesting. I've known some really lovely people who, once they got the job, they've really changed. They've compromised themselves, and they are staying silent because they want their pension. And like, no, I don't really want to publicly support you or speak on your behalf, because I just have 2 more years and then I'm going to retire. And I'm like, do you realize that that's not real, and that you're never going to get that? Real. And did you realize that I'm real? I'm your best ally. So if you want fake versus real, you've made a choice.
And I'm so glad you're bringing that to people's attention, because that is what it is. And so people are going to have to make a decision. Do I want fake or real? And if you're hanging in there, you're like, oh, I'm going to get my pension, my 401k, or whatever that story is going bye-bye. That story is gone.
Going bye. And we are learning. I mean, this is the other thing is that I just think, Avo, about friends that I've had, for some of them are like 40 years, like old high school teachers who was like a mother figure, and they just went off the rails on me. And by reading comments on Facebook or reading the fake headlines in our local news, which is horrific. And I'm like, you're going to judge me from those superficial things versus knowing me since I was a child. And so what my point is that I now know who these people are. I know people's color. I know who's my friends, who's my ally, and who's my enemy. So at this point in time, you are very clearly delineating who you are and where you stand in this war. And when the shit hits the fan, I will not be forgetting that. I will know who my people are. And wow, what a shock. Had no idea who my people were and who they are not. It was just, I'm still flabbergasted by it, to be honest.
It's a shocker, isn't it? And I bet everyone who's listening right now is having that experience too, where they go, wow, this person went that direction. I never would have predicted that. Or this person went towards us. I never would have predicted that either. So it's really incredible, actually. Like, just the surprises on that front. People that you thought wouldn't fall for the propaganda totally did. People who you thought would definitely fall for the propaganda definitely didn't. That's also one of the incredible stories of our time. It's fascinating. I'm a people person. I think you are too. And I find that just to be amazing. I'm interested in it.
Well, I think of all the documentaries and books and Hollywood films and so on that have come out of World War I and II. I'm like, that's child's play. I'm like, they're going to be dissecting this moment in time forever. When you look at the psychological warfare, the bio warfare, the art of war, right? The central banksters, the this, the that. I mean, the layers, and just the psychological emotional impact and of like the Biderman's chart of coercion, right? The 8 steps to basically get someone to coerce them into whatever you want them to do. And just that psychological warfare, who folded and how they folded. And again, we're always trying to figure out like, well, why didn't we fold? And that's still a question that comes up all the time. Why did we not fold? And that is going to be analyzed until the end of time. It's just really, really fascinating.
It is. It's already being analyzed right now. Like a good friend of mine, she's going through all of the incredible layers of corruption in the United States, mostly in medicine, but also in like the Department of Energy, like how they went and dumped nuclear fuel in a landfill in South Carolina. So they shipped it from somewhere like in Nebraska or somewhere from a nuclear power plant on the Missouri River, and they shipped it over to South Carolina and just dumped it in a landfill and this and that. The corruption of our time is an all-time high. It's the craziest ever. It's way beyond the Nazis. It's way beyond the gulags of the Soviet Union. It's way beyond any of that, because this is all like the gulags. They didn't have any money. The Nazis, the last 12 years, it didn't last that long. What we're dealing with right now, this is the craziest thing that's been going on. Like the Tuskegee experiments against Black people in America. If you start going down that rabbit hole, like every now and then I'll go down there. There are so many layers of that style of MK Ultra mind control, the Monarch programs, this and that. You're going like, what is this crap that we're in? And how do we make it right? And the way we make it right is just keep getting the word out there and keep shining a light on it, because that's what they hate. They hate the light. They're running from it. They're scurrying away. They're trying to, don't look there. That's why the censorship.
Those cockroaches. The cockroaches. We have Josh. Okay. He says, our fiat-fed slave debt system, I don't have my glasses on, by the way, is terrible. So how do we either steer the outcome to something good in the midst of these constantly changing Hegelian dialectic paradigms?
Okay, the solution's already here, just like solutions are already here. So, for example, we could all switch to Monero XMR, which is an encrypted privacy coin, and you could be operating. You don't even need a credit card anymore. You can go to a website and just use Monero directly. You can transfer directly from your phone in an encrypted app to that. Let's say you wanted to buy solar panels. You could transfer Monero and you can go to all kinds of Monero sites all online.
Wow.
And then they'll send you the product. So you transferred the money, they send you the product. There's no banksters, there's no interest, there's no credit card involved, there's no visibility by the government, none of it. It already exists now. So what I've loved about the crypto world is that all along there has been, this impulse for freedom isn't where we thought it would be. We thought, like, why aren't people like, are they not fighting for free speech on the internet or in the streets or what? They are, but they're doing it in a very clever way, which is they've created these gateways and these whole ecosystems online that the government can't see into. Nobody knows it's going on. They can't get a cut of the transaction, and it's already there. That's the answer. Now, recently I got onto the Pirate just developed a whole, there's a site called Barter, BARRRTER.com. And there you can use the privacy coin Pirate. So XMR is Monero. That's one of my favorites. My second favorite is Pirate, ARRR. And Barter uses it's all Pirate transactions. So if you want to go buy a bicycle, don't use a credit card, just pay them in Pirate and they'll send you the bike.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, and again, we hit upon this before too, is having different baskets of currencies, right? Not just a fiat currency as it currently is. And, and using, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as you're speaking to. I was talking about time banking where, you actually keeping an accounting of your time, of your kindness, and that turns it into a currency. So I think we're going to see out of necessity, right? Necessity is the mother of all invention. We're going to see that. But in the meantime, before we get into that larger system, You got to just be willing and able to hunker down for a while and ride out some rough times. And some areas will be unscathed, and other areas it's just going to be a shitstorm. So you just got to be ready for that. And you got to understand that as we go into this next period, and I'm just holding my breath for the winter. I'm holding my breath through November, actually. And I actually think I will have a big Christmas party if we get to the other side and we're just unscathed. But I think you just have to be ready for a lot of massive interruptions. So make sure you have your medications. If there's anything that you need to fix or buy new, get it right now, especially when it comes to digital type of products, computers and phones and things like that. And just be ready for that. And then also build your people. Go and have regular potlucks. And then when you have your regular potlucks, start talking about barn raisings. Like, I need work in my backyard, but I don't know how to do it. Okay, let's go to Mary's this Saturday. Oh, Peter, he needs to repair his garage so he can turn it into a studio and rent it. Let's go. So it's actually beautiful.
It is. I mean, you see, yeah, what you're saying, see, this is the thing. This is why it's being forced upon us. It's forcing us into, Rudolf Steiner said it this way. He said that what actually is the key to stopping what he called the Ahrimanic deception. So all these deceptions of banksterism, and it just goes on, the government deceptions, military deception, everything. It's all Ahrimanic deceptions. He said that loving assistance actually solves all of it. Mm-hmm. All of it. And one fell swoop. Just lovingly help your neighbor. Like, we're having a Halloween party here on Saturday, and all the neighbors are coming, and we've all known each other for 20 years. I mean, it's epic. I mean, that is the best thing ever. It really is. And it's not necessarily we hang out every day, but we do get together. We've had concerts here at the house and stuff, and it's super fun.
I think for Halloween this year, I'm going to dress up as David Avocado Wolfe.
Yay. Okay. So you got to get a poncho.
I
think you could probably put the wig.
Where can I get that hair? I mean, and that's what it is. It's beautiful. And that is also, by the way, why the art of war was to destroy our communities, right? To destroy that fabric of that network of community. And that was by design, because that's where our power is. So we have to kind of come back, reassemble. But it's like, well, now we know who our people are. We know who can actually stand strong, because I'm willing to die for my friends and vice versa. Like, don't mess with us. So it's a beautiful thing. So again, we can get through it, but you're not going to be able to get through it if you're not prepared for the rough times. That to me is the biggest challenge, because if you can just get by and you don't have to do it alone. I say to people, if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's because you're trying to do it alone. And if you think that you're going to cover all the bases, I don't care how long you've been working on it, you ain't going to cover all the bases. But if there's a small group of you, right, and then you have another circle of friends and another circle like that, you guys are covered. You've got everything you need. And so that's what we're really trying to do. And I also have encouraged people for right now to do that SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Usually it's worked in the corporate world, but it's like, no, as your small group, look at, okay, what's our strengths? Okay, you can do electrical work. You're a carpenter. You know how to grow. You can make medicines. Okay, our weaknesses, this is what we got to work on and shore up. These are our opportunities. We've got a great town, great soil, great community. Our threats, we talked about it this last hour. So, and that's what you need to do. So then you can prioritize as well, but you don't take it on by yourself. You do it as a group. And we just had our Monday night dinners we've been having since spring of 2020, all new friends. And I sat there and I said that this last Monday, I just realized that every Monday feels like a Thanksgiving dinner.
That's so cool.
You guys were all strangers to me, did not, for the most part, didn't know any of you before. And you're my family. And I've never felt such a strong sense of family my adult life as I do now.
And community, right? So it's family and community. And so we're starting to get back to that. This is forcing that hand. It's a beautiful thing. And so this is another piece of the puzzle, is that everything that's happening in the world is for our own spiritual evolvement. Mm-hmm. Everything that's happening to us is for our own evolvement. As tragic as it is, or as preposterous and crazy as it is, it's for our own good. Mm-hmm. And so that perspective, by the way, is the spiritual perspective on all of reality. It really is. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, at the highest level of everything is trying to help. Right? All of nature, all of reality, all God, everything is all trying to conspire to help you to move your life forward, to evolve your soul and get you into action. And that perspective, by the way, has never been more pertinent than right now. And it's also another thing too, is there's this engagement, but also detachment. Like, we're not really attached. Like, if we die in a drone war or whatever, it's like, okay, I'm going to somewhere better next time, so I'm not really worried about that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this whole fear of death is a big hook that they got everybody on. That's been one of the big ones, by the way, on both the scientism and the religion. And so that tells you, by the way, their complete grasp of that idea that of like the terror of death tells you that death is not terrible.
No,
Right?
when I was crossing Alaska in 1994, I was skiing down the frozen Yukon River by myself. And it was 55 below, and my polar suit, I was sweating so much pulling my sled. I was just sopping with perspiration.
You were cross countrying?
I cross country skied across Alaska.
Whoa.
I was the first woman to cross Alaska alone by myself in the dead of winter.
Amazing.
Yeah, crazy. So it's only my third night out, 55 below. My eyelashes have already frozen off, and I froze to death that night. And I felt myself leave my body. And I went to bed, and my legs were convulsing, and my stomach was just like this, and I wanted to shake, but I was so exhausted because I just pulled a 160-pound sled, like 10 miles, and it was just really intense, and my body just couldn't even shake like normal. It was just too exhausted, and I remember clearly thinking to myself that okay, right now I'm absolutely miserable, which is really, really good. That means I'm alive. And if I start to feel comfortable, there's no way that's going to happen in this condition. That means I'm dying and I'm freezing to death. So if that's the case, get up, build the fire, get some food and fluids in your body. And as I'm saying this, I begin to lose the sense of my body. And I feel this extraordinary expansion of just ever connection to everything. And I was so calm, and it was so peaceful. And I just sat there, and I remember a moment later, I think to myself, so this is what it's like to freeze to death. Not so bad. And then just a moment, and I remember thinking to myself, I'll never feel this kind of freedom. I was connected to everything. I was everything. I was one with everything. And I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. That did not happen. But what happened was I was thinking, not so bad. And then just a moment later, my legs just went, and they thrashed. And I felt and heard my whole body just go, it sounded like a vacuum, back into my body. I was like, no, this is miserable. And my legs just kept kicking all night, and they kept me alive.
Wow.
No, yeah, it was a wild.
And then you kept going?
Oh yeah. I got up the next morning and kept going. So I ended up, in a nutshell, I skied 600 miles down the frozen Yukon River. I got a dog along the way to be my companion. And then I got halfway across, and the river was melting ahead of schedule. And so I stayed in an Athabasca native village to wait for the river to break up. Did not know what I was going to do. And so while I was there, I'm thinking I have no other options, and I realized I had two options: give up or find a different way to continue. Very similar to where we are today. And so and this is the beauty. This is what's so beautiful about life. And I want to really, really press this. I'm walking in now, my little tiny cabin. The Athabascans let me stay in for 2.5 months. So I was in this village. Like, I don't see any other options. How do I continue? Do I just give up? What do I do? And as I'm walking in and out my little door, there's this little snowbank that's melting, and this little green thing sticking out more and more. And I'm like, what is that? As I'm walking back, and I dig it out, and I dig out the last canoe built in this village 20 years before, but it's dilapidated. But I think to myself, that's what I'll do. I'll build myself a canoe. So I went to all the elders and said, I'm going to build a canoe. I just need some tools. They're like, I'm like, no, I'm going to build a canoe. And then word got back to me that day, no, women don't build canoes. So I had to go back to the elders and say, no, you don't understand. Where I come from in California, that's what women do. We're canoe builders. It's just our thing. And they didn't know how to respond to that. So they lent me the tools. I cut down 3 trees, and in 3.5 weeks, I built myself a canoe. And I paddled that thing 900 miles in 11 days. I averaged 75 miles a day on flat water, no current, because it's a huge river. So I filmed it for National Geographic, and I ended up being the first woman to cross Alaska, as far as like a white woman, don't know indigenous, but first one to cross Alaska alone. And yeah, crazy. And then I found out my great-grandfather, General Frederick Funston, did the exact same trip exactly 100 years before at the exact same age, including building an 18-foot long canoe. And wow. I was adopted. I didn't even know my name yet. So there's so many points I want to make to this. It's a beautiful life. It's a beautiful world. We've been so disconnected to the Creator. to how beautiful and magical and how connected we really are. I mean, when I read the book like The Ringing Cedars and Anastasia talking to the wolves and the bears, and I'm like, the plants, I'm like, that's not fantasy. That's our origins. We've just been removed from it. And we are so connected that the DNA, like my DNA, whether it was cellular memory or reincarnation, I don't know. I knew how to build a canoe. And I did it really well in 3.5 weeks. And people are like, how do you know? I'm like, I don't know. It's just really easy. I did this and that. And I made some adjustments. And so I'm like, but that's the stuff we've been disconnected from. You know, we've been disconnected from our ancestors. And they're calling our names right now. And we need to call upon them. I've been saying to people like, call upon your great-grandparents. They want you, but you have to call them in. And there is thousands and thousands and thousands of years of wisdom and intelligence that I tapped into when I was crossing Alaska.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
There was a great meme that went around this week, which was become the greatest representative of your lineage ever.
Nice.
That's we're being called to do that. Become the greatest representative of your lineage ever. You're the greatest remnant of your whole lineage. Like, let's make it happen. This is it. It's our time.
It is.
Now, I did want to get into, but before we get too much further, about the astrology of our current moment.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
This is big.
This is going to be another two. This is going to be a 3-parter, by the way. Let's talk about that. There's a lot of arrows pointing to so let's get into the astrology and then what's bubbling up. We're not done yet. This is so good. Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay, so we just had yesterday, so October 25th, early morning, 7 a.m. was a solar eclipse, and that's an important, like, new beginnings kind of energy, right? And so an energy buildup type of solar eclipse. Nice. So when there's a solar eclipse, the sun ends up winning, and that generally drives a new beginning. That's just a general thing. There was the conjunction of Venus, and Venus crossed in front of the sun on Monday, so October 22nd. So there was a lot happening in that week, and then and yesterday too. And it was a very unusual day yesterday. I don't know about you, but I had a great energy yesterday. I was up till 4 a.m. doing saunas and cold dips and all that. Wow. And then boom, we're going into the November 8th lunar eclipse, which is visible on the midterm elections in all 50 states and all of Canada. And that day is good. And the way I'm calling it, by the way, I think it is going to be a red wave, by the way. And that's what we want at this point. It's not like I'm like, rah Republicans. We want people who actually care about the future and aren't completely brainwashed by media, and actually care about the kids and actually care about a future for all of us. And just the way it's turned out right now, it's like, some of those Republican people are the only ones that are in that zone. I don't really see, I see like RFK Jr. is obviously on our side, and he's a Democrat, and there's people like that out there, but it's really gone sour for the Democrats. They've really come under, not to say the Republicans are under anything great either, but at least there's some glimmer of light there.
Yeah. Did you hear the thing about Carrie Lake? Did you see that with, what's going on with her Project Veritas? Did you hear this?
Oh, I mean, well, I've been following her closely with like Katie Hobbs. I mean, I think they're going to pull a Beijing Biden basement story with her. They're just going to try to cheat her in. I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. I don't know what's going on there. What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, what happened was Project Veritas Katie Hobbs has a sister, Becky Hobbs, a twin sister.
Oh, I missed that. I did see a headline of that. Tell us what happened.
I was like, oh my God. And I have to also, by the way, I have to digress to the death thing. I kind of realized I didn't make my point. But anyway, so with Katie Hobbs, what happened was her sister, Becky Hobbs, God bless Project Veritas. They're on fire.
Amazing.
And so they caught Becky Hobbs talking how the Democrats, and I was like, God, I want to know what Carrie Lake thinks about this, have been investing and have been funding extreme Republicans in order to scare people to vote for the Democrats. Well, what they're saying though is, yes, that's what what they did is they actually invested in Carrie Lake to be the Trump-backed, extreme Republican. But I'm like, well, first of all, I'm like, Carrie Lake is kicking ass, first of all. I mean, if Katie Hobbs wins, it's a complete ruse. I mean, there's no way. You look at the numbers and it's just like, it's overwhelming. But they basically said that they were really relieved that Carrie Lake won because she's an extreme. And I'm like, okay. But so what's happening is the Democrats have been funding extreme Republicans as a playbook maneuver to scare people into voting for Democrats.
Wow.
And poor Katie Hobbs must be just kicking her twin sister in the shins. Like, what the hell did you just do? So that was really quite explosive. But you see that kind of manipulation going on.
Yeah. That's like textbook manipulation and textbook also like, Art of War, Sun Tzu type of stuff. And the Democrats do play by that playbook. The Republicans are just controlled opposition to just hold off any opposition until we get into a digital prison. That's what it's been. That's what the Mitch McConnells are. That's what the Kevin McCarthy's are. That's what the Liz Cheneys of the world. They're just to hold the place until we're in the digital prison.
We're just different shades of gray, essentially, just different shades of gray.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think, by the way, that I think the left is radical left, and I think the right is center. Personally, so they're trying to reframe that on us. Like the radical right-wing extremists, it's like there's nothing radical about what Carrie Lake's saying. No. We need the military on the border because there are border wars going on between the cartels on the Mexico side and sometimes even on the Arizona side where they're shooting at each other and nothing is being done by the U.S. military and nothing's being done about the trafficking of fentanyl. Nothing's being done about the drugs. Nothing's being done about anything.
Human trafficking. I've seen aerials. I was at an event in Atlanta, Georgia, and we saw the nighttime aerial footage of the Mexican mafia, the Mexican cartel, and actually the Chinese, full military regalia. I mean, the whole entire thing running back and forth, trafficking people, totally arms, ammunitions. And this is a former female, she's a vet, and this is her group of people going out there and doing the work that the DHS should be doing, the military should be doing, and they're doing it on their own. They're retired and they're just getting themselves together and they're doing the work instead. And they're showing us the nighttime footage. And you're like, oh, it was a cavalry, of just back and forth. And you're like, how are we not seeing that?
This really brings to light a really interesting concept, which is all of these institutions have been corrupted. The military totally corrupt.
Well, that's why it has to fail.
Everything. DOJ totally corrupt. FBI totally corrupt. CIA totally corrupt. Everything. They're all massively corrupt, and that's why we just have to start over. And that's as that crumble, that can't sustain itself. Obviously, it's just total criminal activity.
So let's go back to the astrological side of all this. And also, I wanted to say, by the way, too, I was talking about my time in Alaska, where I basically died, and I just want to say to people, it's not so bad. It really, you don't realize that we are actually in a pressure cooker. That's what it felt like, is I realized that we are in a pressure cooker. This is intense and there's nothing to fear. So just when they try to scare you, you're going to die. It's like, and so what? So I just want to talk from personal experience, get over that, move on, be in the moment. Okay, so let's go to astrology.
Okay. That's the best ever. And by the way, on that, just a little bit on that point, I spent a lot of years studying people on reincarnation, Ian Stevenson's work, Max Tucker's work, Brian Weiss's work, et cetera, and also Rudolf Steiner's. To me, there's no question that you reincarnate, that this is a soul journey. It's been scientifically proven repeatedly, historically. And so this whole thing of being in fear about your death is really just a strategy for them to control you. Okay, so that's that. Anyway, so the astrology is really interesting. So we've got a big lunar eclipse coming. Now, for those of you who are into cryptocurrencies, you may remember that the lunar eclipse, which crashed the Luna coin, which was a total devastating thing in the crypto world, has kept crypto down. That kind of a thing can't reverse itself until the next lunar eclipse. And that's this one coming up, because that was back in May, and that was the end of that lunar eclipse season. Now we're all the way over here. And now there's going to be a new one. So if you're a crypto person, I think everything looks like red wave and everything looks like crypto's going up. I'm not going to say the stock market will probably go up a little bit because there'll be renewed hope, and it's all emotion. The stock market's all emotion. But I'd say the long-term picture of the stock market's terrible because it's just all propped up by hedge funds. It's just all complete sham. 401ks and all that. Anyway, so I think it's looking really good to buy us some time. And we do need more time. People are always asking me, like, don't you just want this all to go down right now? It's like, no, I want to buy more time. Prepare. If you're being smart about it, let's prepare more. And so I think we're going to see a really good turn of events on 11/8 on November 8th. And then we're going to see also a big scramble by the system to impose draconian whatever, because they'll realize that they're not going to be able to hold on to their power. Like, people don't want them, and they're going to have to fake the elections even more. They're going to have to use more voter fraud. They're going to have to fortify elections even more. And then we're on to that. I'm telling everyone in Arizona and everywhere around the country, but in particular Arizona, be out there with your phone. Be out there at 4 a.m, filming everything with your phone. Go to these phones, just film everybody.
Especially in the middle of the night. Like when I went out and saw all the utility trucks coming in from 3 to 5:30.
I love that about you.
You got to be there. Get up, get your coffee, get a couple cups, and just go do it. And you'll have a great story to tell your grandchildren years later. So just go do it. No, you have to be you've got to be the citizen journalist, essentially.
Yes, and expose it. Shine a light on it. Like, hey, what do you do? Confront people. What are you doing here at 4 a.m? Hey, who are you? Let me get your driver's license. I'll just firm your license plate. Freak them out. Freak them out. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm kind of excited about that. But then I'll be in Texas, which isn't like the most. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to trust my instincts too. Like, my instinct tells me, get up and go do this. Go to this one place. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go to that place. Well, I'm just going to follow that. And I'm recommending everyone else follow that too. I think we're going to capture some really interesting stuff on film. I think this is going to be a really gnarly expose on in particular, the Democrat cheating machine.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. So, and by the way, that's the main reason I vote. I vote just to make it harder for them to cheat.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. I know it's a numbers game. Well, so you're talking, okay, so astrologically, massive November 8th. What's also fascinating is Cliff High, who I mentioned last time. If you don't follow him, please, people, he's such a brilliant character. And it's CLIF, 1F, High, HIGH. He's on what, a BitChute, a little bit of YouTube. Great stuff. Brilliant man. He reminds me of you also have this incredible breadth of knowledge, very diverse, and he does too. But he looks at the analytics of language online, and he can see little markers pop up, and he can kind of make some predictions. Harder nowadays because there's so much censorship online. But he's also saying he is seeing a massive uptick, a huge marker, November 13th. So he's like mid-November is going to be like just a game changer. And then we also have the gentleman Monkey Works, WERX, who I was following a lot around the 2020 election. And he is seeing how it looks like, I think it's Gitmo, how they have all these court cases. And then all of a sudden around the election date, there's just like a little bit of a break. And then all of a sudden all the court dates are canceled. And then for like the 13th on, there's like nothing scheduled at all, like zip. And he's like, I've never seen anything like this before. And so he's Monkey Works, WERX US on YouTube. Highly suggested. What he does is he analyzes, he's a former military guy, excellent job analyzing, airflow, airlines, air traffic. Thank you. Air traffic, whether it's military or commercial, and also he's looking at the battleships and what's going on as far as military tactics over in Europe and around the world in the Middle East. So he does a great job of analyzing and showing you the playing field. Like, okay, something's being set up over here. Okay, they're coming in here, and what he just a few days ago, he said something's going on. He saw a lot of military personnel being dispersed and deployed around the United States like he's never seen before. So he's like, something is up. And then when he looked at the Gitmo, like the whole calendar, he's like, wait a second, things aren't being scheduled now. They've canceled and they don't schedule on after the 13th. So my point is this. We've got you looking astrologically. We got Monkey Works identifying things. We've got Cliff High who's identifying things. And we have this massive election going on, right? We know it's just building and building. And then we also have individuals saying, look, if there's going to be a move on America, any kind of tactical move that's like amphibian on the ground, now would probably be the time. And so I just tell people, like, look, if something goes off where there's a huge event, right, that is a ploy to take your attention away from what's going on behind you. Like, look around, be aware. We're talking in the day, at night, get your communications going, because it's going to get wild and woolly. And again, it's not that it's bad, but it is necessary, right? It's got to blow up in order for it to come down, and then we have to start over again.
Yes, it's just a matter of timing on all that, right? It's just a matter of timing. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just bridge us over to the new world in a way where it's, we're not in total devastation. And I think this is where the crypto education really comes in. Like, Bitcoin's public blockchain, everyone can see it. but Monero isn't. And the IRS hates Monero, and the government hates Monero, and they can't stand pirate chain. And so that tells you something, doesn't it? That tells you something. So we've got to get the education necessary to start to look into, like, yeah, maybe I should. It's called an atomic swap, where you switch, like, just like that, you flip all your Bitcoin into Monero, and then it's immediately de-encrypted. It's the de-encrypted becomes encrypted, and nobody can see what happened.
So if you have, like, we have some crypto, but it's in storage right now. It's completely off. I don't really actually have a lot of Bitcoin. I can't think what I have, but I can't think right now. I have Ethereum. So my question is, would it be good to just move that stuff and go into Monero?
Yes, absolutely. If you look at how Monero has resisted the collapse of Luna and what it did to the whole crypto market, that'll be educational for you, because Monero's been around since 2014. And therefore, we know it will survive anything they throw at it, and they can't de-encrypt it. There's nothing they can do about it. And that is the most beautiful thing ever. They've already beaten every attempt to try to crack it. They're not going to be able to crack it. And eventually what happens to the government, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to run out of resources. They're going to be people on the inside. We see them as whistleblowers today. They're going to say, I'm not going to do this. Or, they're trying to de-encrypt it. Let me interfere. I'm going to screw them up, so that whoever's trying to de-encrypt it, I'm going to mess them up. And that's what we're asking, by the way. If you do work in the government, if you work in the higher echelons of all of this nonsense, you should stand in there as a whistleblower. Tell the world what's going on. Tell us what's happening on the inside.
And it's a defining moment in time. Who are you? Like, where do you stand? What's your character? And if you're going to stand on the side of evil, then when it all goes down, people are going to remember that. They're going to know that, right? You're going to have to come to terms and face that. And maybe even criminal prosecution, or as you said, just being shot out in the street. I mean, it's going to get to a point where if the courts can't process the criminals, it's going to be done by the citizens. That's just the reality.
That's the reality.
Yeah. And I would be a little bit concerned if I were people who've been kind of sitting here feeling like they were uber powerful and nobody could touch them with a 10-foot pole. It's like, I'd be kind of uncomfortable in my skin if I were you right now, because it will get to that point. And then the people I see here personally, former friends, will not stop the narrative. I'm like, okay, you're making your bed. You're going to have to lay in it. People are going to be pissed, especially people who've lost their children to the shots, or a loved one, or they've been crippled themselves. People are going to be pissed off. So at this point in time, once we get through this whole astrological cycle, then what? And that's like middle of November.
Yes.
Then what's after that?
What's happening? I think in March of 2023. I think we're actually, those of us in our community, I think we're looking good. The astrology looks good for people who are on the freedom movement, people who want a light shined on the darkness. And so my recommendation is, from this point right to March of 2023, you need to get yourself in position.
Yeah.
You got some time, but you're going to have to get yourself in position. Now, hopefully you're wrong about the prediction that they're going to, storm the beaches in November.
I hope
Maybe
so.
They will. I don't know. I mean, let's pray that they don't. But I think we're going to have enough time to get it all together by March of 2023. Then we're going to see things get chaotic on that other side. The Beijing Bidens of the world, and the Ursulas of the European Union, and all these bureaucrats who want endless war and endless money laundering in the Ukraine. Eventually that they're going to have to push it further, because there's resistance. They're not getting what they want. I mean, Ursula had to get on and be like, we're going to have to send at least $2 or $3 billion a month to Ukraine to keep them afloat. Like, no, we don't.
Yeah, well, you see Australians are pissed off. They're like, what are we doing? Right? The NATO nations are like, what the hell? The Europeans are like, don't do it. I mean, there's a lot of Americans saying, what are we doing in the old border war? And I go back to, if you really want to kill that system, don't participate. Like, if they do a draft, I'm sorry, just go off on vacation somewhere. Don't do it. It's imploding. I mean, everyone is backpedaling like crazy right now. They don't want to be involved in it.
We're going to see some real leadership coming out of my underdog pick, actually, of the state that's going to provide the leadership that's going to lead, especially the free states, out of this, is Missouri.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I grew up a lot in Missouri in my life, and my aunt was a diehard Democrat. I grew up in that environment. They were into Gephardt. They were big, close friends with Gephardt. I think you remember him. He was a senator from Missouri.
Yeah.
And it just, they're and the world that they came from, I was really in, and it was interesting. Missouri politics, even Democrat politics, was what we would say today is very center.
Yeah.
We would call it radical right wing today. And right, it's just crazy. But you see like Senator Hawley, he's got his head on his shoulders. He understands what we're up against. You can see Attorney General Schmidt, he's got a head on his shoulders. So my personal feeling is that Missouri is probably going to drive into a leadership position as helping to develop a union of free states. That's my little underdog pick.
I've never heard that from anybody. That's fantastic.
I want to say one more thing about that. The Mormons say that the final battle goes down in Missouri.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Really?
Yep. And it's in a county in Northwest Missouri. I grew up a little bit in Buckland County, Missouri, and it's 2 counties over from that. I recall. I can't quite remember the name of it, but if you look it up, it's like the name of the place is called Bish Adam Bongoa or something like that. If they have a name for it, and it's in Missouri. It's on Wikipedia if anybody can track it down.
Well, that is absolutely fascinating. I would also think that Carrie Lake is going to play an amazing role as well. I mean, that woman is on fire.
I love her. She's so just real. She's real.
She's real. She's been a reporter. She knows how to be in front of a camera. She knows how to call and sniff shit out. She knows how to talk, get to the point, no bullshit, real fast. I mean, anybody gets around her, she's like, it's like, yeah. So I think Arizona is going to play a real role. I'm excited about that. And we're going to pretty much watch, California still just kind of roll over for a while. It's kind of shocking, even currently, just to let you know, I don't know if you know how bad it is, but even still now in Berkeley and in Oakland, they're still requiring vaccination passports.
Oh my God, that's still going on. That's so insane. That is so insane. Well, California, so there is a natural separation between Northern and Southern California. So what I should do, I need to send you this. I want, what, can we do a share screen?
Sure. Let me get my glasses on because I can't see diddly.
Because I have the original boundary of Texas, the original layout of the nation of Texas. And I think you're going to be surprised by what's in it.
Okay. Window or screen block. And there you go. No, mute web. Okay. Let's see. Window, Safari, StreamYard. Entire screen. Is that? I'm trying to see what it wants me to do. It's kind of.
Okay, let me see.
Wait, what am I?
Screen. Okay.
It's been a while since I've done this. Bear with me, guys. I'll cut this out from. Okay, so I don't want to block. I'm going to allow. It's not allowing me. Select window or screen. Safari, Brave browser, Finder, mobile, StreamYard, entire screen. Is it you or me?
I'm trying to share screen. Let me just see if I can. Let me just try. Okay, so I'm going to go to. Let's go to slides. Okay, so
it might be on your end.
I can grab this slide and just drag it in. Hold on. Let me just see what happens here. Hold on. Let's see this. So let's go here. Let's see if that drags in. Nope, didn't drag in. Let me go to my computer. I'm going to upload the file. So this file is called Texas Original. Let me just get this. This might work. We could get.
Yeah, it might be on your end. Yeah.
Let me try this real fast. Texas Original. Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, it won't let me upload that kind of file, unfortunately. Okay.
Can you do can you do a screenshot of that file and then upload it?
Yeah, that's a good idea, huh? Let me see this. Let me see. So you're saying, yeah, I don't know what form. You know what? Hold on. Let me just see what format it is allowing me to upload. That would help, and that way I'll know. So we're going to go to share. Let me just see if I can just share it. Oh, it's giving me something. Hold on. Entire screen. Okay, so I'm going to share my entire screen. Okay, here we go. Boom. Oh, it's not letting me share. What's going on? Why? Come on. Can you see it now?
No.
You can't see it. Okay. Hold on. Let me see why you can't. It says go to System Preferences, unlock the screen by selecting the lock button off the left corner. Check the Google Chrome if already. Restart Chrome. Oh, it's going to have me. It's asking me to restart it. No. Okay. So let me just tell you. Okay. So
you know what? You know what I recommend you do? What I recommend you do is, can you send me that file? And as you talk about it, I'll insert it. I'll edit it in.
Okay. Deal. Done.
Okay.
And the point I wanted to bring out is that there's a whole chunk of Arizona, including Phoenix for sure. And let me see. It looks like let's see, Phoenix, going all the way into northern Arizona, a good chunk of New Mexico, and a massive chunk of Southern California all the way to the ocean that was originally Texas. Most people are not aware of that. Southern California, right up to just south of, including Orange County. This is so weird. You see, there's an energetic thing about this that was part of the original Texas. See, so those places in Arizona, the Kerry Lakes strongholds, those places in Southern California, San Diego and Orange County, those places, that we consider, Texas, quote unquote, Texas, the best parts of Colorado, including all the ski resorts, were originally part of the nation of Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, the original outline of it. And so I've made memes with this image before, like make Texas a nation again. And imagine if California, the reason why this came up is if California splits up, it'll split up between North and South. The character of Southern California is not the character of Northern California. It doesn't attract the same people. It's not energetically similar. And we could see California split up between North and South. And actually, let's hope that it does if they keep this grip on California, because we've got to get California back to freedom again. It is one of the greatest places in the world, as we know. I love that you're just like boots on the ground. We're fighting this. We're going to do it. That's so epic.
Oh yeah, no, and there's a lot of amazing things going on in San Diego as well. I met some amazing pockets. I met all the people campaigning, but Northern California, even more northern than us, is definitely like, let's just succeed, let's get out of here. And so they're already on that bandwagon, but I would assume that as this continues, right, that there's going to be even more counties that are going to include themselves. And so, no, the whole, it's not Jefferson, it's the new California is what they're calling it. So they're really like, let's get out of here. And and if it continues, it's going to happen. So it's like, okay, try to prepare ourselves, get as ready as possible, but it's also like, wow, what an exciting time to be alive.
The end is the beginning. This is the beginning is near, as that great meme has, right? The beginning is near. What a great time to be alive. We might see the beginning of a type of freedom we've never known. I mean, imagine, see, to me, taxation is slavery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the future, so I just like to get this idea out there. In the future, taxation will be looked on in the same way as cotton farming slavery is looked on.
Yes, that's right. Oh yeah. No, you can never escape it. Once you're taxed, you can't escape it. It's just that simple. It's chains, it's shackles. And so I think people are now actually really realizing that, and so ultimately we're gonna get beyond that. And and I know that we're going to have different baskets of currencies, and we're going to do more trading and bartering. So, and I just say to people right now, as you just mentioned, we've got some time. So you better just keep preparing, just keep doing more, just keep falling forward. It's always about just keep falling forward. Don't fall backwards, and just get your house in order. And in fact, it's really interesting. I have to tell you, maybe you've seen this too, but I was on Monkey Works when he had this piece about what he's seeing with all the traffic, the air traffic, military traffic in the States a few days ago. And in that thread, because he has 600,000 followers, and he had, tens and tens of thousands of views. And in the comments, I spent an hour just reading the comments because there's a lot of really good information of people saying, yeah, I'm seeing helicopters and this and that, and an Air Force like I've never seen. And so it's like, they're just kind of all backing up what he was saying. But what's fascinating is everyone's purging and cleaning house. It's like, oh yeah, I'm clean. And I'm like, that's because we are too. It's like, oh, I'm cleaning out my garage. I'm purging this. I'm getting rid of that stuff. I'm like, and then I had some friends saying, oh my God, we're doing the same thing. I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, yeah, we're like, I'm really in this. Like, I got to clean and organize and get rid of stuff I don't need. And I'm like, and take stock, see what you have, what you don't have. They're like, yeah. I'm like, fascinating response to all this. But there's definitely a thread to that. I'm definitely seeing that over and over and over again, which I think is really interesting. I think people energetically know something is coming, and it's like, get your house in order.
That old phrase, right? Get your house in order, get your affairs in order.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's coming, and it's going to be glorious, whatever it is. And I think on the other side of this, we're fighting for real freedom, total freedom. We're fighting from freedom from the IRS. We're fighting from freedom from taxation, period. We're fighting for freedom from government, period. We can never have a system ever again that becomes this tyrannical and this domineering with this kind of maniacal psychological operations going on. The medical system, we're throwing it all out. We're going to take the best of what we learned, and we're going to redo it all. And we've already got that all set up. Mm-hmm. It's all ready to go. Like, for example, my friends in Texas, they're already running an emergency room that's not in the hospital. It's in their office. So if you have an emergency room thing and you're like, I don't want to get jabbed or get stuck in that system, boom, you go right to them and you're already in. That kind of thing is coming bigger, better, and faster than ever before. So it's coming, and our time is approaching. We are actually we're the Abraham Lincolns or the George Washingtons or the James Madisons or the Susan B. Anthonys or whatever. We're it.
Yeah. I just got chills with you saying that.
Yay.
My vagus nerve was like, woo!
Yeah.
Oh, Avo, well, thank you. You're just a gem. And as I said, I always kid you whenever I see you, when I have the fortune of seeing you in person, which is just lovely. I always joke with you that your Telegram channel, if you aren't on Telegram, just get on Telegram, just to go to David Avocado Wolfe's Telegram channel, because you're my smoke break. I'll be sitting there working all day. I'm like, oh my God, I need a little bit of Avo. And I don't smoke, but I'm sitting there and I'm going through going, I don't smoke, but I'm just like, and I just want to sit there and just give you big kudos, because when I look at your Telegram channel in the past, I always thought, oh, he has got to have a team of people doing this, because you're shooting it out all day long. And then I was at an event in spring with you, and I'm sitting right behind you, and the stages up there, and watching the people, and I'm watching you, and you're right there, at the event, but you're just shooting the memes out as you're there. I'm like, damn, he does that by himself.
Thank you for that, by the way. And I love social media in that way. I was like, whoa, we can get a message out for free. And I love freedom too. And Telegram is the freest platform out there. So it's like, we're firing away. And
well, I could say Telegram was the only, because when there were, it's so messed up. When there were voter guides saying who to vote for, the voter guides that came out with, like, we suggest Reinette Senum, could not send an email, could not send in messages, could not attach as a PDF, could not get to any platform whatsoever except for Telegram.
Oh, wow.
Telegram was the only one. And even now it's so skewed. I was just on Ballotpedia yesterday. So it said, oh yeah, you only got 12,000 votes. I'm like, well, first of all, I don't think the votes are right, but I'm like, no, I got just under 52,000 votes, which is not that great either. And I don't believe that, actually, by the way. I'm like, I met 52,000 people, by the way. I'm like, I don't believe that. But I went on to Ballotpedia, and they have the votes, like the official votes, and they're like, it's like half the votes. Newsom's got his votes, but everyone else has like half the votes they actually got. I'm like, the internet is so skewed right now. I even went on and I started, because you have to Google yourself every now and then to see what's being told about, what's said about you. I went online and I realized Google has now, because they wanted me to sign a DocuSign where I can give them permission to use my image. I'm like, I don't want to sign a DocuSign with Google. I don't even want to, that's creepy to me. And ever since then, they now have it where there's no more photographs, there's no more Twitter stuff, there's no more videos, there's like nothing. It's like I'm almost like a non-person. And then I went to look at other candidates, and they're like, oh, this candidate is a politician. I'm like, well, they ran, but they're not a politician. And they have more stuff, but they're like me, like, nah, you're just nobody, Reinette. So Google has even changed how they present people online. Ballotpedia, which is the go-to source, has all the finances, and the voter, results, the election results are all skewed. And it's just like, it's just so bad right now. Online is so bad.
It makes you wonder, like we've created a society that wants to destroy free speech, or at least there's aspects of the society, like these companies. It's just amazing to me that we've created this. It's like, this is a crisis of our education system. The education system should teach people the First Amendment and why we have it, the Second Amendment and why we have it, and on down the list. And that's what should be going on in education. It's strange that we've gotten to a point of misinformation. The reason why we have misinformation and disinformation and censorship is because the criminals are being exposed.
Yeah,
that's why.
That's right. That's right. And you do a superb job. So get on to David Avocado Wolfe Telegram channel. You will be so entertained. And it's so great to laugh at it.
Fun. Comedy and tragedy are really, they're right there on that razor's edge. But I have to say, because I just feel less and less attached to this world. It's more and more funny. It really is. It's like the cosmic giggle in it all is absolutely insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also about letting go. I mean, that's where I've let go of my community. I've let go of my old world. I've let go of my assumptions. I've let go of the goals that I had before. I'm just like, whatever. You know, I'm like, just be in the moment, because all we really have is right now anyway. And I keep saying to my partner, like, honey, all we have is this very moment, you know, because, you know, we have our ups and downs. It's like, whoa, but it's like, we just have this moment. So, and you're really good at bringing the laughter out and just laughing at it. It's just fantastic. Now, is there anywhere else that people can find you?
Well, you can always find me at davidwolfe.com, DAVIDWOLFE.com. I've got over 3,000 articles there, I think even close to 4,000. And where else? Frequencylifestyle.org. That's probably more up to date, frequencylifestyle.org. And that's where we do like our cleanses. And also I've got a whole bunch of videos that are short videos that are going up there, just, you know, for stuff that be out there. And it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and you also have on your Telegram channel as well a lot of different products out there that you've tested, you've used, you believe in, you endorse. So I'm always very grateful that you have that, because you just keep posting it. So when people come around going, oh yeah, he is on, that's on Avo's, you know, Telegram, so you can go back and order it. So, well, you're just a delight. And again, tell Robin thank you so much, because we're communicating back and forth, trying to nail down a date. Thank you. I know you've been so very, very busy, and I'm going to make this into 2 additional parts, because as it is with Substack, you can't really do an interview more than an hour for the most part. So I'll split this in half. And I just so adore you. And send me that PDF, by the way.
Send you that image. Yeah. So stay tuned. I'm going to send you that Texas image. It's really cool. Thank you so much for your time. And I love to your whole team, and love to you. I love you tons. Can't wait to see you again. I will be in California at the beginning of December. So hopefully we can connect then.
Well, you know, you always have a place to stay. You can have my house. You've got a place. So it's really lovely. So, okay, Alva, thank you so much. And goodbye, everyone, for listening in. Take care. Bye for now.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.